Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Mariana Marques, Azimuth World Foundation President. Just a quick reminder that you can also listen to the podcast version or read this interview at azimuthworldfoundation.org/insights. It's impossible to discuss the global climate and biodiversity crisis without talking about the Amazon. Deforestation, illegal mining, and logging have reached alarming levels in recent years, pushing crucial ecosystems to the brink. The Amazon bears the visible scars of our collective impact on the planet: pollution, overconsumption, inequality, alienation. However, if you look at satellite images of the Amazon, you'll notice that amidst the deforested areas, beyond uniform plots of land used for farming and intensive agriculture, and beside the destructive trails of miners, life persists. It is vibrant, powerful, and a lifeline for so many species, including ours. Often, these preserved areas overlap indigenous territories where communities have lived sustainably for generations. They have preserved over 80% of Earth's biodiversity while developing cultures and identities that recognize humans as an integral part of nature's tapestry and health as determined by the environment, physically, but also culturally, spiritually, and as a community. In Brazil, indigenous communities continue to struggle for their right to inhabit and manage their land. Their lives are under constant threat, despite their globally recognized and valuable contribution to our environmental well-being. Colonization is far from over, and survival is on the line for many of these communities. It's critical time to listen to people like Ana Rosa, the founder of Meli Bees, who works to protect indigenous people's rights and self-determination. Drawing from her indigenous ancestry and driven by the ecological, cultural, and social tragedy unfolding in the Amazon, Ana Rosa and a generation of Amazonian leaders established Meli Bees. Their goal is to strengthen land protection and regeneration through indigenous and local-led projects. Ana Rosa is committed to amplifying the voices of the communities she works with and creating networks of knowledge, solidarity, and allyship to tackle the enormous challenges we face. We are thrilled to have her with us today. Hello, Ana Rosa. Thank you for accepting our invitation to Connecting the Dots. I want to start by asking you to introduce yourself and briefly describe your organization, Meli Bees.
Hi, Mariana. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm honored to be here with you. And yeah, so Meli is a nonprofit organization that basically engages a network of indigenous and local communities in endangered areas. Right now, we are focused mostly in Brazil. So we started in the Amazon area and we grew up now for two others. We are also developing projects in two other biomes within the country. And we support them to develop their own projects, leading with their own vision of the future they want.
Thank you. And Najasa, before we delve into the solutions you're working on, could you tell us about the context that led to the creation of Meli Bees? And what is the arc of deforestation, and what have you witnessed regarding the Amazon's deforestation and its impact on indigenous communities?
Yeah, so the arc of deforestation is the area that happens to be like an arc in the Amazon, where most of the deforestation there has historically takes place. I grew up in a city called Marabá, and there I could see how much the crimes against the forest, the crimes against the environment, are deeply connected with crimes against the human rights. So that's basically what moved me most. Another crucial reason of why this project started is because when we first did a crowdfunding project to engage with the Kayapós, we raised the attention of many other indigenous and local communities in the area. So we saw the engagement and we saw the need of support for indigenous and local communities in the area. So we saw that we can We could have partners to do. There were many partners already on the ground ready to develop regenerative projects. So that's kind of what moved us most. And from there, the first year, we did a bunch of separated projects. So kind of one project here, one project there with different communities. And now we are trying to have a stronger ecosystem approach because we see the need of like a larger environment. And basically we are establishing this structure for them to connect and to have this base where they can start their projects and that they can have the support for them to reach the projects and so on. Also, a very crucial thing is that we saw the big advantage of when one community is more active on the network. So we have monthly events since they start. We always had kind of update calls online with Jitsi, just for us to get to know each other better. And we saw the importance of this participation for them to interact. But at the same time, we also see the large amount of communities that don't have access to a stable internet connection. So we try to juggle with these two different situations and engage the communities with events and with workshops and with simply calls or conversations as long as we can.
Your organization name is inspired by native stingless bees. So can you tell us about your work with the Meliponiini and why they are an inspiration and guide for Melibees philosophy as an organization?
Great question. So we are Melibees Network. So the idea of this network is very strong for us since the start. And Melibees is because we work with the Meliponiini bees. I mentioned that we did a crowdfunding in the very start in 2019. We did a crowdfunding to work with Meliponiini bees and to support the Kayapos to do so. And the Meliponiini are stingless bees. They are native. They are actually native to all tropical and subtropical regions across the globe. And even though there are more than 400 registered species of them, there's very little information. Or even in Brazil, many people don't know about them. The bees, they go to the forest, they go or to the plants, to the flowers, to gather their food. So they primarily go for food. But when they do so, they do ecosystem services. We try to have the same vision. So we want us to develop activities that have both impacts for the environment and for the community. Like if we support indigenous cultures quite broadly, we do so. If we work with regenerative agriculture, we do so. If we work with native bees, we do so as well. And we work with activities that have both social and environmental positive impact. When we first started, we started to hear also from other indigenous communities, there were products from the stingless bees used to make arrows, some details on the arrows they use. So we also see on this regard, just looking for these little species, a bunch of points that are related with culture, environmental, health, food, and so on.
Well, thank you for sharing, Ana Rosa. Many of us might have come across the terms agroecology or bioeconomy before. Still, it will be great to learn from you what these regenerative practices mean and why they are the basis for your work with indigenous communities.
Sure. I do think there are many different views on regenerative agriculture, on regeneration, agroecology, and so on. And for us, the main point of it is to have to be led by the communities and to be biodiverse and to have a good care of the microbes and the soil, so the soil microbiology. So healthy soil, healthy community, healthy biodiversity, we see the long-term need to have the real engagement of the community, that the community don't simply accept that to be done with them. The community is actively involved on making that happen.
Mellybees network already engages leaders from over 50 communities in endangered areas of the Brazilian Amazon, primarily in the states of Pará and Maranhão. How did you initiate connections with these indigenous and local communities?
So first of all, I connected with them because they were my friends. Like I went to university with indigenous people and grew up exactly in Maranhão and Piauí, Pará. So that's kind of the region I know as home. But I have to say that this was the start. So the first communities I kind of knew directly. The second generation of communities I didn't know directly anymore. They knew each other, and they brought more communities and more. So a network started to grow by itself. So we also grow up to other states in Brazil, like Maranhão, also other biomes. So we are in the Amazon. We are doing projects in Mata Atlântica, so Atlantic forest, and in the Cerrado as well. We also work between Cerrado and Maranhão, so it's Cerrado and Amazon. So these two biomes that are next to each other, and there are indigenous communities that have both biomes in the same area. Like the Amazon, this part of the Amazon that's close to Cerrado, the same community lives in both. There are some communities that live more only in the Cerrado, like the Craô. The Craô live in the Cerradão, kind of the very Cerrado areas. The Guajajara live in both. But like the Tupinambá, we also work with the Tupinambá that live in the Atlantic forest. It's a whole other context because they were the first indigenous that had contact with the non-indigenous people, with the Europeans. We work with communities which the parents were the first generation that had contact with the non-indigenous. So that is it's quite different, but at the same time, we see many points that connect them, regardless of being in these different biomes, these different contexts. They anyways get connected and can exchange many ideas and help each other. In the first years, we did a lot of projects with regenerative agriculture, so agroecology, and native beekeeping, of course. We do have native beekeeping as one of our core projects. And we did some also storytelling activities that were actually more story listening. It basically engaging the communities to listen again to their own stories, to reflect on their own stories. So these were the first years. This year, we are very open to what the communities see that they need. Right now, we are in a focus on food sovereignty. And we did a couple of different projects that go from community kitchen with the Pataxó. We are working on that. But at the same time, like with the Guajajara, they are more doing seeds collection, seedlings production, native beekeeping for the reforestation of their forest, so protecting their forest. While with the Apurinã, they are doing some agroecology work with the schools. And that's a common point that I saw very often. Many indigenous communities engage the local schools. They want to engage, regardless with the topics. All these projects want to engage somehow the local schools. With the Gaviões, the kids are painting their traditional patterns in their beehives, so they are involved in the schools. The Pataxó are inviting the kids from the school to be a part of the process of working on their community kitchen, but also working on the regenerative agriculture they are making to support the kitchen as this meeting place to kind of reconnect with this traditional exchange they have.
You also have in your team members of indigenous communities, right, at Mellybees?
We need that for the projects to engage locally, right? So we need their help, their understanding, their support for be sure that to be sure that this project would be successful locally. And we learn a lot with them because they are the ones who actually have the local knowledge, who knows which direction the project should take, right? Or who they should engage more. A point that maybe I didn't talk so much about is that the community science, because we also engage a lot with universities to help us answer questions raised by the communities. So sometimes the communities share, oh, this is happening, why is that happening? How can I better work in this situation? Or, oh, look at this bee. Do you have information about this bee or this plant? Or so we try to connect these two actors in, of course, non-colonizing ways, or the colonial.
Yes, I was going to ask that, Ana Rosa, is how do you involve indigenous communities in research without engaging in that data extractivism and prioritize the community's desires?
Yeah, I think a good start, a very good start, is to first wait for questions that are raised by the communities. Because we need to understand that the indigenous the communities do pay attention, and they do study in their own manner the local biodiversity, right? I remember Jonas Guajajara, one of the members, saying, oh, we have these and these bees, but these and these and these the non-indigenous don't know, because I have looked a lot about them, and I don't think you are aware. I don't know the name in Portuguese, and probably you're not aware of it. And to try to connect these two different perspectives can maybe help to gather information about the species and understanding. So of course, there's the local understanding, the local wisdom that happens of what happens, but sometimes they do also want to exchange, to try to raise their information about these plants or these bees or these species, and that can be either from another local community, or maybe the university. I mean, we can practitioners or academics can maybe support. Sometimes other practitioners have even more knowledge than the local university, so it's kind of there's not only one solution. But I think the start is to be guided by the communities to answer questions raised by them.
It's good that the science community is also embracing and being more open to receive indigenous knowledge, although there's just science in different fields can still be very conservative, but that we're starting to see some being more open and kind of be more in sync with indigenous ways.
And we are lucky because we actually have been approached by the universities more than the other way around. So normally the university partners that we have contact with are the ones who are already open for that. So we never had problems with university partners. The ones that come to us normally have also an aligned vision with us.
Well, the methodology employed by MELI-Bees involves engaging community members, a contributors team, hubs, and partners for each project. How important is it for projects developed with indigenous communities to become indigenous-led and managed by indigenous peoples?
I'm right now writing a blog post that's probably going to be released already before this comes out, that is on something that I saw happening last week, actually, literally. 3 communities came up to us showing some progresses that came from the project we developed with them. So with the storytelling workshop, the local community started elder group in the community. And this group is now doing another project with us this semester on native bees. And that was very beautiful to see how one project developed to the other. Then there was the project of the school related Gaviões. We did the project last year for them to have this beehive area, like circa 50-60% bigger now the area, because they multiply the beehives, and all the multiplied beehives are being in that little house that was painted by the school students. It's a project that was finished. Our part of Meli is over, but they continue because they had this motivation, they had this clear vision, they wanted to continue. And the third community was that wrote, and I was impressed because it was really within 2 weeks, all three,
Wow.
all three messages. So the third one was Francisco Guajajara. Like last year, he took part in agroecology workshop in another community in Pará. He's from Maranhão, from the Araribóia indigenous area. And this year he shared some photos from his work, being based on what he learned last year. He's working in his community doing agroforestry system, so using local ingredients to make the fertilizers. We're trying to establish a culture of every year doing a regenerative agriculture workshop with the communities. And this year, the regenerative agriculture workshop is going to be exactly in Francisco's village. So for me to see that Francisco already, with his knowledge from last year, is already putting in practice in his community, and to just imagine how much more he will learn with the workshop going exactly to his community. And this workshop this year is very special because we are bringing a teacher with a lot of experience with other indigenous communities, like the Guarani in São Paulo, who are doing like really indigenous-based regenerative agriculture, and like great examples that showing for the other indigenous communities how they can do support their own food security for the start to work with their soil, with their biodiversity. It's very nice. So I think to have these three examples, for me, they were exactly three examples to show how the communities, being autonomous, they can continue this project or even only events. I found it, I was very touched. I was very touched about that. And of course, we do wonder very often, like, okay, how can I make the communities really autonomous? It's about the being a partner in the journey, right? And I do think there's also this misconception. It's the autonomy is not only about having financial support for the community. The autonomy is to have the support, and there are many different capitals for that. There is the environmental capital, the social capital. There are like heaps of capitals that the communities need to be autonomous.
And how does international visibility contribute to the success of these projects?
So with the international visibility, I was able to raise the funds for Meli to start. Even though I grew up in the Amazon, I'm a migrant since a few years in Germany, so in the European continent. With my social background in Brazil, I wouldn't be able to simply take a year off to do volunteer work to open a nonprofit organization. Would not be possible. And here I have I found few partners that could support us doing that. So basically, the international visibility is to raise support, to raise funds, to do the projects on the ground. So of course, we also work with the global awareness here. So we see a lot of persons here interested on getting to know more about these communities. And our aim is that very soon we kind of also can bring the indigenous knowledge to come here. So to exchange this knowledge actually on both ways would be the ideal. And of course, the culture is a super big topic. There are many indigenous filmmakers. There's, of course, the awareness, the political awareness, the international visibility. So, well, I think all that can play a role together to make a world that respect indigenous traditions, local traditions, and build together a work that really connects with each other.
Well, going a little bit into political awareness, Lula da Silva's presidency has brought hope for halting deforestation, particularly compared to Jair Bolsonaro's policies. But Ana Rosa, what is your experience on the ground so far beyond these headlines? Is there genuine optimism among the indigenous communities you work with?
Yeah, so the optimism with, of course, having Bolsonaro behind, and there was a strong optimism after Lula came. At the same time, I'm always very careful because the first round of Lula presidency a few decades a while ago, he didn't do everything super good for the indigenous communities, not for the Amazon. He did some big constructions that were not environmentally sustainable at all. So we do need to be careful. At the same time, there's an optimism because it's after Bolsonaro, we had a very bad experience. It's kind of, yeah, we can breathe again. But of course, we need to be careful at the same time.
Well, Ana Rosa, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your dedication to protecting indigenous rights and fostering regenerative practices in the Amazon.